We head to the phones, and joining us, GOP political strategist and co-founder of MustReadTexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. Good morning. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing all right. Appreciate you coming on today. Let's talk a little bit about some of the 2016 candidates that are out there, and a new Bloomberg poll that was released where it shows I think Rand Paul, and at least for New Hampshire Republicans, Rand Paul and Scott Walker doing the best out of the Republicans. Of course, it's still very early on and still a pretty close race as far as everyone else is concerned. My question for you is, looking at this poll and also a poll that came out earlier last week that said that national security is now the number one issue for Republican primary voters, do you think that'll impact Rand Paul the most out of these candidates, because he's kind of the odd Republican that people kind of look at and go, we're not too sure how he feels about national security, and he's not as hawkish as everyone else.
Yeah, he's definitely the most out of step with sort of mainstream Republican thinking on national security and foreign policy. And so that is isolating for him. And I think one of the dynamics you're going to see in the televised debates when they get started in August, you're going to see a number of candidates go after Rand Paul on foreign policy. I think you'll see Lindsey Graham and Governor Rick Perry and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz all go after Rand Paul on foreign policy for being isolationist, for being weak on Israel, for supporting the Obama's negotiations with Iran. So yes, this is something he's going to be on defense on. But I think, look, Rand clearly has principled and committed views on foreign policy, and he's not going to change them to try to appeal to mainstream Republicans, number one. And number two, I think his team thinks this is a net plus in the general election if Rand is the nominee, because it will really turn upside down this sort of traditional ideological breakdowns among voters. I mean, you might have a general election where Rand Paul is to Hillary's left on foreign policy and national security. So I think they've made they've made that bet. That's where they are. It won't matter if he's not the nominee, but it's going to matter a lot in the primary, particularly as you said, as these issues, these national security and foreign policy issues, continue to be not only more important but more on the minds of voters.
If you're in the Ted Cruz camp, are you concerned by what many view as stagnant polling numbers?
Well, look, I don't know how much polling matters right now. The only thing that I really look at is obviously positioning in the early states, number one, and then number two, did you get a bump when you made your announcement? And we saw that with Cruz, who was, down in 2-3% territory and moved up into 7 or 8 or 9% territory nationally. Look, Cruz has a path through Iowa and South Carolina, almost irrespective of what the polls say. And his team knows that. And right now, I don't think polling means that much until the field firms up, until some of these debates start happening, until campaigns start spending real money, until they really start building out their organizations in these early states. I don't think the polling matters that much. I mean, Rick Santorum, was polling in the single digits in Iowa even until late fall in 2012 and ended up ultimately winning the caucuses. So a lot of this is going to depend on the shape of the field and where these candidates compete. And, look, if we have 6 or 7 or 8 conservative candidates splitting that vote, it may give the opportunity to someone who's more from the mainstream wing of the party to come in and win Iowa with 21 or 23% of the vote.
If you're Mike Huckabee, who got into the race late last week, it seems like to me you've got Ted Cruz, Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, to some extent Scott Walker, going after some of the same voters out there. Is there who has the best path here for those evangelical, for the Tea Party votes? Who do you think right now is best positioned to go after those voters?
Well, yeah, I mean, what I would say is I think Huckabee has the largest base of social conservative voters that is intact from the beginning. He will start with 10 or 15% of the vote in a state like Iowa, probably, just because of his strong social conservative identity, which he demonstrated and built up in Iowa 8 years ago, and he's held together to some extent since then by being a well-known public figure, and now by entering back into politics. So the question's going to be, you have 4 or 5 candidates who are going to be competing for evangelicals and social conservatives. It's not just, obviously, Huckabee. You're going to have Santorum get in on May 27th outside of Pittsburgh. Obviously, Ted Cruz is making a big push for evangelicals. I think Ben Carson probably appeals to evangelicals as well. So you're going to have 4 or 5 candidates going after that vote. So the question is going to be, who can, keep it together and win the largest share of that vote. But look, that's not going to be enough. You're going to have to broaden your support beyond that. And I think you've already seen Huckabee try to do that, and he's going to try to do that more in the future.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak, GOP political strategist, also co-founder of MustReadTexas.com. There was an opinion piece that came out a couple of weeks ago. You probably saw it on CNN about I can't remember who the writer was, but their opinion was that Jeb Bush is not going to run for president. And I guess there are some people that are eager for everyone just to jump in right now, even though it's still early, and even Rick Perry is eyeing a June date. Why hasn't Jeb Bush jumped in yet, and some of the other candidates jumped in, the first-tier candidates? And is there any chance that Jeb doesn't run?
Yeah, look, everybody has their own timeline. And, if you're Jeb right now and you're raising more money than anyone else, and you're towards the top of the polls and you're as well-known as anyone else, you don't necessarily need to announce. It's not as important, for you as it is for some of these other candidates. The other thing that Jeb is doing, which I think has probably never been done before, is he started his super PAC early, and because he's not a candidate yet, he can coordinate legally with his super PAC. So, he's probably going to get in. Looks like he's going to get in after he takes a trip to Europe, I think in June. So you'll see him probably get in late June. Perry has said from the beginning he wanted to look at a May-June time frame. I think part of that is wanting to hopefully dispense with this absurd felony indictment over his veto in the legislative session 2 years ago. And so he really would like to be able to get rid of that before he announces. And so I think that gives him a few more weeks to keep trying to do that. And to your question about Jeb, no, yeah. Jeb's clearly running. Look, there's just no question about that. He's going to have raised $100 million probably by the end of June for his super PAC. There's just no way he's not running.
Yeah, it'd probably be the most shocking thing to come out of the 2016 campaign so far if he decides not to run for this. Obviously, everything's just bouncing off of Hillary Clinton. Nothing is sticking as far as the scandals are. How do Republicans make hay out of that going forward?
Yeah, look, I think people aren't paying that much attention right now to politics, and that's probably pretty normal. It's people who aren't normal, like me, who are, and you perhaps, who are paying close attention. But look, I think the seeds are being sown right now. And look, every day there's something new. There was a story about Hillary's brother, I think, in the New York Times yesterday about about him using the Clinton name repeatedly to make money and get himself out of problems. And we're learning more about the emails. Hillary's going to be testifying in front of the Benghazi subcommittee probably later this month. So, look, yes, you're still seeing Democrats stick by her. She still looks like a strong general election candidate right now. But the things that I'm looking at in terms of trustworthiness, her ratings on trustworthiness are very, very bad. And that's one of the most important criteria when you run for president, is that people can trust you. So I think, surface level, it looks like it's not sticking. But if you go one layer beneath that, the media is still chasing this story, and there's some warning signs for Hillary.
Matt, what can people find on MustReadTexas.com this week?
Yeah, obviously still covering the legislative session. We've got, I want to say, 2.5 or 3 weeks left. So there's a lot of deadlines ahead and a lot of work still to do. You can find all the news about the Texas legislature, news from South Carolina, where Cruz and Perry were over the weekend. Find it all at MustReadTexas.com. All
right. Next week, I'll ask for your prediction on whether or not we go into a special session. So.
All right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens this week down in Austin. Matt, thank you very much as always.
Take care.
Have a good one. That's Matt Mackowiak. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak.